Kai Cortland, a skilled pilot and tech-savvy prisoner of war, is together with a group of political prisoners at a mining site. While forced to work, he and all the prisoners are chained and bound. One of the officers calls Kai for help in repairing a mining machinery, which he quickly finishes. Later, the officers bring in another prisoner named Tobias Hatch. Hatch turns out to be a revolutionary general, and he initiates a prison breakout for everyone in the mining site. During the ongoing fight, the prison commander decides to activate the mining machinery and kill all of the prisoners. Kai knocks the prison commander unconscious and rushes to shut down the machinery. However, the chain on his foot is keeping him from reaching it. To save himself and the other prisoners from being ripped apart by the machinery, Kai reaches out for a gun and forcefully amputates his chained foot. In the aftermath, Kai falls unconscious on the ground. That night, Kai wakes up at the site of Hatch while inside a ship. Hatch happens to recognize Kai as the son of Gray Cortland, his old companion who helped him take down prisons for their rebellion. Kai finds himself with a transplanted cybernetic foot as Hatch releases him from his bound. Hatch tells Kai about their ideological war against General Lang, a figure from their opposing faction. After their defeat, it is said that General Lang ordered the imprisonment of Hatch and his supporters. Since then, Hatch and Gray have been breaking their supporters out of prison. However, Gray has been captured and is scheduled to be executed in New Holland on Liberation Day. Hatch emphasizes that Kai's father is an important member of their rebellion against General Lang, asking Kai to work together with him in saving his father before his execution. Kai is not a believer and supporter of both factions, but eventually pleads his allegiance with Hatch. He is assigned on a mission to steal the research data that is stored in the enemy spacecraft known as the Arrowhead. This research data will then be used against General Lang and free Kai's father. The next day, Kai secretly boards the Arrowhead to space. The Arrowhead travels on autopilot, with all of its crew being General Lang's supporters. While the Arrowhead crew are inside their sleep pods, Kai emerges earlier than the rest and hijacks the spacecraft. Through Hatch's remote instructions, Kai heads to the spacecraft's data storage. He becomes worried when he finds out that the data transfer will make the spacecraft vulnerable, but Hatch tells him that it is safe and that he can proceed. Kai manages to transfer the research data in his wrist link, but fails to send it to Hatch when the Arrowhead comes across an electromagnetic burst. The burst damages the spacecraft in an instant, causing it to eject all the sleep pods. Kai narrowly escapes in the Arrowhead's shuttle, crash landing near the ejected sleep pods on a planet's moon. As he wakes up from the crash, Kai meets RE-3F Reef, the spacecraft's AI and supercomputer. RE-3F warns Kai about the lethal atmosphere outside and has knowledge on alternative oxygen sources, but refuses to tell Kai until he logs in. Just then, a message from Norman Oleander, head security of the Arrowhead, appears on RE-3F's screen. Oleander orders the rest of their crew to gather in their crash site, prompting Kai to follow after them. When he arrives at the crash site, however, Kai finds Oleander bleeding and unconscious. He then notices a nearby sleeping pod, where he finds a biologist crew member identified as Taryn Hollis. Kai carries Hollis back to the shuttle and helps her recover, while unbeknownst to them, Oleander's body is dragged into a cave. Hollis wakes up afterwards and uses her biometrics to log into RE-3F. Together with Kai, the two head out of the shuttle and explore the moon, which looks like a desert. Hollis also finds a research probe which they sent there in advance. She wonders why the research probe already looks oxidized and old despite sending it only 4 hours before the Arrowhead took off. Nonetheless, the two return to the crash site to board the Arrowhead. Near the spacecraft, Kai notices a suspicious-looking pillar. Kai says that the pillar was not there before and soon becomes hesitant to go to the Arrowhead. She notices Kai's uniform and quickly finds out that Kai is not a part of their crew and is actually working for Hatch. Hollis says that Hatch is involved in numerous terrorist acts, subtly expressing her dislike. Kai, on the other hand, dismisses her remarks as biased and misleading. Hollis offers him a fair trial in exchange for accompanying her to the crash site, but Kai refuses. Kai goes back to the shuttle to escape, only to find out that RE-3F won't let him start the engine using Hollis biometrics. RE-3F explains that Hollis has no authorization to fly the shuttle as a biologist. He then asks RE-3F for more information about Hatch, in which he finds out that Hatch accused General Lang of orchestrating an experimental prison allegedly code-named Carcer Tempest. When Kai asks more about Carcer Tempest, however, RE-3F says that the information is confidential. Just then, RE-3F flashes a message from Moon Landon, Arrowhead's captain, saying that the spacecraft will evacuate in 30 minutes. Kai is then forced to follow after Hollis, making a copy of the research data from his wrist link into RE-3F before leaving. He reunites with Hollis, but on their way, an aggressive insect-like creature attacks Kai. Hollis tries to stop Kai from being dragged by the creature but inevitably fails. Kai leaves her with his wrist link before he is dragged inside and apparently dies. To make matters worse, Kai fails to catch up to the rest of their crew. After a while, she goes back to Kai and stumbles across the pillar. Nearby, Hollis unexpectedly finds Kai lying on the ground with his injuries healed, including his amputated foot. She checks Kai's condition back in the shuttle and discovers that Kai is already immune to the lethal atmosphere of the moon. She also deduces that Kai has undergone symbiosis, which prompted all of his wounds to heal. After 4 days, Kai wakes up, expressing that he feels cold and heavy but good. They formulate a plan to activate the flight systems of the shuttle and decide to check on Oleander. To their surprise, they find Oleander inside the pillar. Hollis and Kai drag him all the way back to the shuttle and log in his biometric data instead. With Oleander logged in, the shuttle's other features and all of RE-3F's functions have been unlocked. They learn that they have 76 days before Liberation Day, making Kai convinced to leave soon. Hollis suddenly recognizes Kai as their previous guard who used to work for her father. She tries to convince Kai to bring Oleander along with them, claiming that she knows him as the person who would never leave anyone behind. After much convincing, Kai and Hollis go out of the shuttle and find Oleander already awake. On the other hand, Oleander turns hostile as soon as he takes a look around. He begins to blurt out that Hatch will come after them and that they should not be in that place. Unable to calm down, Oleander shoots at Hollis, forcing Kai to attack Oleander and kill him. Kai glances at Hollis and sees her protective suit damaged. He yells out loud, presumes that Hollis is dead, before collapsing from his own injuries. Some time later, Kai wakes up naked in the middle of the desert moon. He walks back to the shuttle, where RE-3F tells him that he was apparently gone for 34 days. RE-3F also informs him that the engine has been left running for too long, causing it to eventually burn out. With 42 days left before Liberation Day, Kai says that they cannot lose any more time to be able to save his father. In the meantime, Kai works out a plan with RE-3F to bring back the power in the shuttle and get out of the desert moon in time to save his father from execution. However, the effects of symbiosis on Kai continue to grow stronger. In the middle of the night, Kai wakes up from his sleep with his heart rate rapidly going up. He screams in pain and distress until his body uncontrollably transforms into an insect-like creature before ending up unconscious in the middle of the desert moon once again. Back in the shuttle, Kai is convinced that they should get rid of the creature inside him. He tells himself repeatedly that he has to be cut open and that he should escape the desert moon. Kai goes to the engine and punches it in frustration, but stops when RE-3F interrupts him. To his dismay, RE-3F says that Liberation Day already passed 2 days before he woke up. With his father presumably dead, Kai heads out of the shuttle and lies on the ground, feeling down and helpless. Kai spends the next 3 years of his time accompanied by RE-3F. Within the 3-year span, an insectoid alien has been coming around the shuttle, so he set a perimeter to protect himself. He tries to find out more about his strange transformations and focuses on surviving in the desert moon. Kai also took Hollis' identification badge from her sleep pod and hung it on the shuttle as his remaining memory of her. One day, Kai hurts himself with a knife, and the creature quickly reacts inside him. Against RE-3F's advice, Kai goes out of the perimeter that night to enjoy the view of the rare species of fireflies. When he comes back to the shuttle, he finds the perimeter damaged along with a few footprints. To his dismay, Kai discovers that the identification badge of Hollis has been taken. Later, RE-3F tells Kai about a new theory regarding his symbiotic condition. RE-3F has detected Oleander's cells from the creature that has been lingering around the shuttle during the last 3 years. RE-3F then suspects that the insectoid creature could be Oleander's mutated body. According to RE-3F, Oleander and Kai share the same symbiotic condition, making both of them capable of mutating. However, Oleander is permanently mutated, while Kai only mutates occasionally. Every time Oleander is resurrected, his consciousness lives on in a new regenerated body, but since Oleander's mutation is already permanent, he can no longer return to his human form. Kai, on the contrary, can still be regenerated to his human form. RE-3F tells Kai that he can confirm this theory once a tissue sample has been obtained from the mutated Oleander creature. RE-3F also suggests that Kai should kill his mutated body to destroy Oleander for good. Kai then prepares to capture the Oleander creature. He kills himself and waits for his body to be regenerated. He then sets his former body as a trap to attract the Oleander creature before shooting it using his new regenerated body. With Oleander dead, RE3F examines the creature and confirms that the new theory is right. The Oleander creature is indeed Oleander's mutated form, which came from his original body. Kai mentions the word biologist, prompting RE3F to share information about Hollis. RE3F shows Kai an audio recording of the night Hollis was presumably killed. Through the recording, Kai learns that all the while Hollis was alive. Kai is disappointed that RE3F did not bother to tell him about Hollis throughout the 3 years. In reply, RE3F explains that any information cannot be shared unless it was asked. Kai stares at RE3F in dismay, shutting down RE3F's systems. Regardless, Kai looks around for parts to improve RE3F's features. He attaches a levitator from the old Research Pro, making it possible for RE3F to have direct control and move around. After RE3F is reactivated, Kai sets out on a quest to gather more information on the whereabouts of Hollis and to search for the source of the symbiotic effect. He and RE3F walk along the moon for a long time until they find a deep cave in the middle of the desert. Inside the cave, RE3F scans the area and detects the presence of strong electromagnetic interference. The two of them continue further into the cave, where it is evidently dark. Kai asks RE3F to play a bright video to light up the area, but RE3F does not mute the sound. As a result, the sound from the video echoes loudly in the cave. Kai hurriedly turns the sound off from RE3F, but to no avail as another regenerated Oleander creature appears and attacks him. The creature aggressively bites at Kai's forearm before Kai kills it with his axe. Just then, a loud sound rings in his ears, and he is led towards a wall where he finds his original body along with Oleander's. Their original bodies are pinned on the wall and merge to create another form of alien organism. He kills Oleander to stop his body from further regenerating. Kai contemplates whether to kill his own original body for good, but realizes that he is unable to do so. Before stepping out of the cave, he finds his old cybernetic foot and takes it with him. On their way back to the shuttle, Kai discovers marks of a ship that launched. He becomes elated, believing that Hollis is alive, and that it was her who managed to reach the cave and launch a ship out of the desert moon. Later, Kai notices that RE3F's screen is shaking whenever his cybernetic foot is within close proximity. As he checks the cybernetic foot, Kai finds a pulse grenade attached to it. Kai realizes that all the while, Hatchet does not care about him after intentionally planting a bomb inside his cybernetic foot. Just then, Kai catches sight of the escape pods crashing down the moon. He runs to the crash site and recognizes it as the same group of escape pods that flew 3 years ago. Kai suddenly becomes confused, questioning how the escape pods could have crashed 3 years after it was launched. RE3F watches Kai's clueless and pained expression, deciding to illegally give Kai access to classified information. RE3F shows him a document about the Carcer Tempest, which is revealed to be an experimental project to improve the prison system. A group of scientists have effectively studied time dilation, able to create a facility within which time moves faster than the outside world. Part of the project is to send the rehabilitated prisoners in the facility, allowing them to provide years' worth of scientific research within seconds. Kai curiously asks RE3F why the information was revealed when it was classified. In reply, RE3F tells Kai that some things must be broken to make it better. At that moment, Kai catches another ship about to land on the moon. Knowing that Hatch is aboard the ship, Kai returns to the shuttle and picks up the old research probe. He transfers the existing data from the research probe before leaving it on the ground. Soon later, Hatch and one of his men arrive on the moon. Hatch meets with Kai, claiming that he received his messages but was unable to reply because of the time dilation. It is then revealed that while 3 years have passed on the desert moon, it has only been 20 minutes outside. Hatch also clarifies that the group of scientists did not build the Carcer Tempest and instead found it. General Hatch and General Lang both want to take advantage of the time dilation on the moon, gathering as much data as they can to defeat each other. Kai is reminded of how Hatch intended to let him die on the moon by storing a pulse grenade in his cybernetic foot. Realizing this, Kai lies to Hatch when he asks about the location of the research data. On the other hand, Hatch knows that Kai is lying, so Hatch knocks him unconscious. That night, Kai wakes up in the shuttle. Kai finds Hollis captured in front of him, and Hatch threatens to kill her if he fails to tell him where the research data is hidden. Kai talks about the mass murders that Hatch is willing to commit for the sake of his ideology. In defense, Hatch says that it should not be seen as mass murder, but instead a preempted bail for him and his supporters who are imprisoned. Hatch encourages Kai to join forces with him and work together in defeating General Lang. For the last time, he asks Kai where the data is, and Kai answers that it is hidden in a research probe outside. Despite Kai's answer, Hatch does not follow their deal. Before Hatch leaves the shuttle, he orders his henchmen to kill Hollis by cutting off her oxygen. When he confirms that a copy of the research data is stored in the probe, Hatch mercilessly activates the pulse grenade in Kai's cybernetic foot. Hatch intends to acquire the research data for himself and attempts to kill everyone in the shuttle using the bomb. Unbeknownst to him, Kai had already removed the pulse grenade on the cybernetic foot and attached it to the research probe instead. Soon, the bomb explodes, wounding Hatch and destroying the research probe in the process. Back in the shuttle, Kai is fueled by his anger towards Hatch, prompting his full mutation into an insect-like creature. He kills Hatch's henchman in an instant before staring at Hollis. Outside, RD-3F detects Kai's energy and urges him to come outside. However, Kai is facing difficulty in controlling himself, so he ends up hitting RD-3F's mobile frame. Hollis hurriedly comes out of the ship to follow Kai. She tries to talk to Kai, encouraging him to control the creature until his mutation finally subsides. Shortly after, Kai goes back to his human form and apologizes to RE-3F for what he did. Just then, they hear Hatch slowly approaching their direction with wounds all over him and his protective suit destroyed. Hatch shoots and stabs Kai, telling him that the research data cannot fall into the wrong hands. Kai, on the other hand, no longer believes him. He decides to kill Hatch for good, stabbing him to death using one of his insect limbs. Later, Kai, RD-3F, and Hollis walk towards Hatch's spacecraft. RE-3F asks Kai if he is going to save his father. Kai says that he plans not only to save him but also everyone else. Towards the end, the three of them board the spacecraft and escape the desert moon. Arrowhead is an Australian science fiction movie released in 2016. Despite its low-budget production, this film is intriguing and refreshing. The special effects are also decent. It is not, by any means, the kind of science fiction film with a dynamic space adventure. However, many viewers will be able to appreciate the story and sympathize with the protagonist. The film highlights the hardships of being alone and stranded in a strange place, which tests a human's desire to survive. On another note, the major plot points of the film are found in between the conversation of the protagonist and his AI companion. This may cause the viewers to easily miss these important parts. The plot progression could have been executed better to avoid making the film feel somewhat slow-paced, especially since the action scenes are lacking. Overall, the film is vague but enjoyable if watched without much expectations.